Hello. It's Kendall here. And if you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? And happy Saturday. If you don't know what Saturday is when I do a little something on my channel called Bad Movies in a Beat. The series on my channel where I talk about bad movies while putting my makeup on. But, I already have my makeup on, and we're not talking about a bad movie this week. To be quite frank with you, I am PMSing something crazy. I genuinely believe that if I sat there and watched a bad movie right now, I will break something. I will light this whole place on fire. And that's on that PMS ting. So instead, I figure I should finally get around to this video that I've been talking about doing for the last 2 months, where I talk about 2 movies that I really like, but I have some very hot takes on. We're talking about 2 good movies, because people always ask me, Kendall, do you like good movies? Do you ever watch good movies? And the answer is yes, I do. To be honest with you, my taste in movies is largely camp garbage, art house. 2 sides of the same coin, honestly. And today I'm just gonna, put on my pretentious art people hat and talk about 2 films I really like, but one that I like way more than the other. And apparently that is quite the hot take, according to Twitter 2 months ago, who was calling me a doo-doo head for my, quote, bad takes. Today we are looking at both of the feature-length works from Ari Aster, one of my favorite newer directors. And we'll be talking about and comparing to some degree his work Hereditary in 2018, and then his sophomore piece, which was Midsommar in 2019. Side note, incredibly impressive to have 2 films, feature-length films, year after year like that. He don't like sleep apparently. But honestly, you can watch both of these movies and say, you going through something. But yes, both of the films are great. Very subversive of the conventionalities of, is that a word? Hey Siri. Yeah, conventionality. The conventionalities that we think of in regards to horror. It doesn't do a lot of the stereotypes and a lot of the tropes, but there are elements about both of them that keep them in genre. So it's still a horror, but it tries to rely very lightly on things that we come to expect from horror, as far as jump scares and tension buildup that's not very scary by the time we get to a climax because we knew it was coming. Oh no, baby, you don't know where none of this is going. But even more specifically, I'm going to do this whole video and let you know why, if you think that Hereditary is better than Midsommar, you are wrong and you're a doo-doo head. Mic drop. So the plan right now, tentative, I don't know, I might change my mind, is to make this part 1 of something I'm going to call the Midsommar Odyssey. Because in this video, I'm not going to talk too much about Midsommar specifically, as in a play-by-play of events in the film. It's going to be more so general themes and techniques that I found very fascinating in both films, Hereditary and Midsommar. But I was thinking of doing a part 2 where I talk about Midsommar proper, and then talk about what actually happens at the film in case you're too afraid to watch it, and just other things that I really, really want to delve deep into in regards to Midsommar. So let me know if you'd want to see that, part 2 of the Midsommar Odyssey. But basically, Midsommar is better than Hereditary, and it has quickly turned itself into my second favorite horror movie, behind, of course, Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd. But yes, so in today's video, I'm basically going to talk about what dampens Hereditary? Though it is a good movie, what is it that stops it from being peak great movie? What is stopping it from being this complete watershed moment in horror? In my opinion, of course. And B, what Midsommar just does better, both in execution and just the innate qualities of the storyline that makes it just, what? Huh? Amazing. But before that, a word from our sponsor. Hi, it's Admiral Kennie here to let you know that today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 delivery meal kit service that allows you to make delicious, healthy, and easy meals right in the comfort of your own home with meal kits delivered to your front door. With so many recipes to choose from, you're sure to find something that not only fits your dietary needs, but also allows you to get out of recipe ruts. HelloFresh takes the stress out of meal prep and allows you to spend less time in the kitchen and more time eating delicious things, usually within 30 minutes. Ingredients are pre-portioned so that you don't waste food, and that you also don't have just those random ingredients that you use for one recipe and then never use them again. Looking at you, turmeric. I don't use you for much. HelloFresh is incredibly flexible, so if you want to add extra meals, extra proteins, or their delicious sides and desserts like garlic bread and lava cake, love me a lava cake. It's really easy to do that as well. For those of you new to my channel or don't know that I have a history with HelloFresh, I've long been paying for them out of pocket for almost a year at this point now. Decided to try other meal kit delivery services only to realize that they're booty. Straight garbage. Really hard to follow instructions, or just like this crazy amount of extra plastic that it's very poorly organized. So I can say, both as someone that's reviewing HelloFresh and someone that actually has paid out of pocket again myself, good stuff, baby. The food is delicious. Everything's incredibly well organized and well packed. This week, I had the Gouda burger with tomato and onion jam. Oh, yes, baby. I feel like most things should have an onion jam on it. And now that I know how to make one, most things will. It was just giving very much so that episode of Bob's Burgers. Woulda, coulda, Gouda. You Gouda be kidding me? Gouda as it gets. Gouda, Gouda gumdrops. Gouda, Gouda two shoes. Gouda day, sir. Loved it. It was so good. I haven't had like a homemade burger in so long. And I was like, man, that's fire. Fire flames even. And HelloFresh donated over 4 million meals to charity in 2020 and is continuing to step up their food donations amidst the coronavirus pandemic. So if you want to check out HelloFresh, feel free to go onto HelloFresh.com and use code Kennie14 to get 14 free meals. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery, in whichever direction the debauchery may be. Ooh, okay, yeah. Just making sure it was still recording. Side note, my hair is up because I hate it. It just won't. I just don't like this color on me. I look like Simba. Sure. So first, let's do a brief introduction to the director, Ari Aster. So Ari is interesting. He sounds like a type of person I would love to have a singular conversation with, but admittedly, if he's making films like this just from his own mind, can't be wrapped all too tight. Disturbed man. That's all I can say. He's an alumni from the American Film Institute and of course director of Hereditary and Midsommar, as well as the grossly unappreciated The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, which that's a whole other video. I could go on and on about how people memeified sexual assault towards men, especially black men, especially when that memification of sexual assault towards a black man was by other black men. But again, different video. But alas, Ari Aster is quite an incredible screenwriter and director who seems to be, again, mostly more inclined towards the disturbing, the horrific. And so am I. I love a good disturbing film. But for Ari, and I think the thing that makes his horror so effective is that he creates disturbing, horrific storylines within the context of just mundane family dynamics or just everyday relationships or a breakup. These like very human things to kind of make that the epicenter of this big, horrible terror that is going to ensue throughout the movie. I don't know. I just think that's really cool and thought-provoking and very effective as horror, in my opinion. With that said, being that his films do focus so much on building that relationship first and then pushing that relationship into just the horrific, there is like a slowness to the film because we have to do all this background work. So if you're impatient, you just want like a kill count extravaganza, it's not really for you. I don't think you would enjoy it. I think you'd get quite bored, honestly. But I love them. I think they're great. If you've ever seen an interview of Ari, being that he's made these films, you are aware that he's a little bit of a sick But if you've ever seen like an interview of him, he's just this kind of like awkward ball of nervous energy, and it's quite endearing, honestly, especially in foil with what he makes. But he just makes great film, and he makes film that not only suggests but requires more than one watch. And those films are always great in that you will never have the exact same experience. It'll take a while before you've kind of put all the puzzle pieces together. Ari is big on the Easter egg. There's this sort of like Where's Waldo-esque. I love being able to go in and see things that I couldn't see before. But not to get too ahead of myself, the Where is Waldo Easter egg effect can also be somewhat of a double-edged sword, and I certainly feel like that was more so the case in Hereditary than in Midsommar. If you start to notice too much, you risk undermining the story itself. But let's put a pin in that because we're going on to synopses. So this is your first official warning if you've seen neither of these movies and you would like to see them and you would like to avoid spoilers. Sometimes spoilers do nothing to me. Like even knowing what's gonna happen doesn't really bother the experience of watching. These are films that I believe will greatly undermine your ability to enjoy the film if you know these things are coming. So I will greatly encourage you, if you have any plans on watching these movies, if you're not too much of a scaredy pants and you plan to actually watch the films, do not continue with this video. I'm going to essentially nitpick them apart. Like I said, I have some major gripes with Hereditary that have to do with very specific things going on in the film. So if you haven't seen the films, one, you probably won't even understand what my gripes are. And two, again, it'll ruin the movies for you. So if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend them. They're a lot, is what I'll say. And I warn you that they're a lot. Okay. But if you don't really plan to watch the movies or you think you can't really stomach it and you'd rather hear me be like a filter of the storyline and just give you like a very, very watered down synopsis of it, let's go. So Hereditary is about the Graham family, who in all superficial ways are just your normal average suburban white family of four. There's Annie and Steve, who are the parents, and then there's Peter and Charlie, who are the son and daughter respectively. Annie's mom dies in the beginning of the film, and you can tell pretty early that something is off, for lack of a better word, with the family, especially in relation to Annie's mom. She was a weirdo. And that's an understatement. But when a second tragedy strikes, we as the audience just watch as this family kind of erodes at the seams. The second tragedy is the gruesome death of Charlie in a freak quote-unquote accident, which resulted in her getting her head ripped clean off by a pole on the side of the road while they were rushing to the hospital because she had a nut allergy and she ate a bunch of walnuts. Ooh, those two scenes, the accident and Annie finding out. Side note, oh, what is her name? Something Collette. Ooh, whoever plays Annie, something Collette. Toni Collette. Toni Collette acts her ass off in this movie. Let me just say that. We watch as the family kind of just buckles in on itself, and poor Steve, the dad, is trying his hardest to kind of keep things together. Poor guy. There's a lot of animosity between Annie and Peter because Peter was behind the wheel when the accident happened. But honestly, there had always been a lot of strain in their relationship because of some other things. I'm not doing the whole movie here. Don't you curse at me, you little Wait, I have the script book. Don't you swear at me, you little You don't ever raise your voice at me. I am your mother. I've given everything to you. All I ever do is worry and slave and defend you. And all I get back is that face on your face when now your sister's dead. If you could have just said, I'm sorry. That hit too close to home. But you can't take responsibility for anything. So now I can't accept. And I can't forget. Because nobody admits what they've done. And scene. I'll explain why I have this in a minute, but great. Yes, Toni Collette. Work, Toni Collette. But yes, you're sitting here and you're like, well, this is a family drama. This isn't a horror. So like, where does the horror come in? I mean, outside of her getting her head cut off, that's not, hey. Long story short, things get real weird. Very weird. Before you know it, there's naked cult people. Yeah. It's very weird. So in the midst of them struggling in this family drama, Annie and Peter particularly end up struggling with all of these weird supernatural oddities and events. And in the end, we find out that much of the events of the story were all the very meticulous machinations of a cult. A secret demon worshipping cult that was once led by Annie's late mother. This cult created an incredibly convoluted, generations-long plan to get 3 heads from the bloodline, the grandmother, Annie, and Charlie's head, and a male vessel for this reincarnation of a demon named King Paimon? one of Lucifer's helpers and king of mischief. So yeah, very light weekend watching. Okay, and Midsommar. Midsommar, I think's description is going to be a lot less disturbing. It's also a cult movie, by the way. In many ways, I think of Midsommar as like the sister film of Hereditary, in that things that lend to the horror, i.e. cults, are the same in the sense that there is one in both. But also in that Hereditary relishes in the elusive, the cunning, the unseen. If I recall correctly, Aster even referred to them as Machiavellian. Need to put that in my vocabulary. Cult that controls the family with these unseen puppet strings. And what Midsommar does instead is just turns that premise on its head. Doesn't hide the frightening things in these kind of unseen backstages, but instead shows you what is terrifying in front of you. And somehow, and that'll be something I guess I get into in the second video more so, but somehow people were able to watch that whole movie and thought, hey, at least it's a happy ending. Everything's so pretty and everything's covered in flowers. I hate people. So this film centers around the main character, Danny. Suffers this incredibly detrimental and traumatic loss. The death of her entire immediate family, both of her parents and her sister, in a double murder suicide. And then as like a cherry on top, she has this super boyfriend named Christian that planned to break up with her, but after hearing of this incredible tragedy, feels stuck in the relationship because he doesn't want to be the guy that dumped the girl who just lost all her immediate family. So basically he spends most of this movie behaving like a person that doesn't want to be in their relationship. But Christian is an anthropology major, and he ends up begrudgingly bringing Danny along on this thesis research trip to Sweden, and they visit this remote village called the Harga, something like that, which is this very almost fabled, incredibly Aryan commune, even in the middle of rural Sweden, that one of Christian's friends is actually native to. That's his hometown. And he invites everybody to the strip during their fairy tale like Midsummer festival, during which, again, things get very weird.
Mäktiga och hemska bäst.
I think I ate one of her pubic hairs.
Sounds probably right.
Basically, the whole film is the seduction of Danny. How she slowly but surely starts to align herself with the cult.
You are the family now, yes?
How she's comforted, how she's understood, how she's able to have such bellowing emotion and catharsis, how she's able to be enshrouded in their light despite the nefariousness of the entire f***ing situation. Both films are gripping, emotionally raw, cathartic. That's another adjective that comes to mind a lot with Aster's work. Incredibly well made in like a technical sense. Well performed by every actor, again, especially Toni Collette and what's her name? Florence Pugh? What's his name? Something Wolf, the guy that plays Peter. Alex. And somebody let me know that he's one of the Naked Brother band brothers. And he's also an old. So, you know, good and bad. We all have our ups and downs in careers and whatnot. But he did an amazing job as well. And both are admittedly terrifying. So here we are. I'm giving all these compliments. I'm saying both are good movies. Then what is it that makes Midsommar better? By proxy, what makes Hereditary worse? Well, two things. One, as I've kind of alluded to before, Hereditary's storyline, if you look at it too long, don't make a whole lot of sense, baby. And two, my personal inclination towards horror that exists within the realm of just human behavior. I personally don't need supernatural things to be terrified. I believe that human beings are the most frightening thing on this planet. Instead of using like the supernatural, the demons, the spirit world, the king of hell or whatever but more so connect in a very frightening way to human empathy, human emotion, vulnerability, base need for acceptance and understanding, how all of those innate qualities in human beings can be taken advantage of. And Midsommar just does that better. So what is wrong with Hereditary? Again, Hereditary is by no means a bad movie. Absolutely not. I definitely see its value in the horror genre. Also, if we're talking about this in a purely horror genre, not really focusing so much on the family drama aspect, some scenes are A lot. Especially towards the end. Again, if you find that you're not particularly good at watching horror movies, I could definitely imagine this movie will fuck you up. Me personally, I was like, oh, that's new. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, you got kind of innovative with the upside down head banging. Head bang on some rock shit. And on the flip side, if the scariness, if we think of that in the most conventional sense, is all you're looking for to tickle your pickle, then you by far will be entertained by Hereditary. If you're not me, if you're not me and you don't rely so heavily on things making sense to enjoy them, then you'll love this movie. Well, I do enjoy the movie, I'll watch it. But after I saw Hereditary the first time, I was very aware that the movie was going to have to be watched a second time to get kind of clued in. And again, I love that. I love the Where's Waldo Easter egg hunt thing. The problem is, once you tell me everything was because of a cult, see all the ways that the cult had something to do with it. So what do? I go back and look for Waldo. I look for all the ways that this cult could have feasibly had something to do with the events of the story. This incredibly convoluted, complicated, generations long story. And once I do that, I start to notice too many things that don't make sense and ultimately takes a movie that I would have given like S rank, great ass movie, to like a B-. B-. I'll still watch it. It's still a good movie. I'd have people watch it. When you have so many plot holes at that point, it's like, oh, it's taking me out, man. Basically, I looked at the masterpiece for too long and it started to look like paint by numbers. So allow me to list off just a few of the things that came to mind when we were talking about why this movie doesn't make sense. 1, the death of Charlie. On the pole that Charlie ends up hitting her head on, we see the like insignia that's supposed to be the emblem of Paimon or whatever, and his cult. Insinuate that the cult in some way had something to do with the incredibly coincidental sequence of events that led to her death, and specifically her beheading. You're trying to tell me that a cult orchestrated Peter would get invited to a party. He would go to ask his mom, can he go to said party? That she will push him to bring his little 12-year-old sister, 13-year-old sister, that while at said party, someone will be making cake with a ton of walnuts, just a gross amount of, I hate walnuts, but if you're gonna put them in there, it's 80% walnuts, ew, that she will eat these nuts that she's allergic to, go into anaphylactic shock, will struggle to breathe as her airways close up, and in an effort to breathe, open the window, stick her head outside of it as they drive 90 miles an hour to a hospital, only for there to be a deer in the street. Peter swerves to the right instead of the left and runs right into that pole and knocks her head clean off his shoulders. What? 2, sure, the cult was sending over brochures to like grief meetings and stuff like that, but there's nothing that guaranteed that Annie would go to any of them, which means that she would have never been in a situation to summon her dead daughter, which means she would have never welcomed Paimon into their house. 3, am I supposed to ignore that Paimon apparently has the ability to temporarily enter Peter, who is his supposed ideal vessel? He can go into him at all? And sure, let's say he can do that. While he's in the body of his preferred vessel, his first idea was not to do something that would like push forth his plans to be able to occupy his body permanently. Instead, he just has him throw up gang signs and bang his nose against his desk. Which, side note, as far as like execution film-wise, great scene, but story-wise, makes no damn sense. What point is this for? Something. Speaking of occupying Peter's body, at the end of the movie, Paimon is finally in, I guess, entirely, fully within Peter's body. They've finally done the master plan. He's where he's always needed to be, always wanted to be. And for some reason, once inside, Peter has the most confused and terrified face that I've ever seen. And one of the main reasons why I actually purchased the script book was to read what I was supposed to be understanding from this scene. Because in theory, as they have like the explanations on facial expressions that should be shown, I thought that I would understand what's going on, trying to find places where I got some clarity on certain things, but no, I didn't. It just even made me more confused. Because at the end, if I recall correctly, they had him have Charlie's voice. Yeah. Joan calls him Charlie. What? He's staring at her in panic, his eyes fixed fearfully to the floor as his breathing grows erratic. Peter doesn't react, just stares at her, uncomprehending. So am I, Peter, so am I. If the entire events of the movie has been Pyman orchestrating this entire master plan along with this cult, wouldn't he know that the plan is done and he's finally succeeded? He doesn't know that he doesn't know that this was exactly what he wanted to happen? This makes no sense. Pyman is confused and unaware now that he's inside the vessel he was trying to get the whole movie, and for some reason he's also Charlie? What? Because as I understood it, Pyman was inside of Charlie earlier in the movie, which also doesn't make sense because there were situations where the light of Pyman would leave her body as well, which means he wasn't trapped inside of a female vessel. But that was another thing I just thought of that doesn't make sense. So what was that? 5, 6. Why did the grandma stay away from Peter when he was a baby? Like if he was the ideal vessel. Because Annie basically says like, oh, my mom was insane, so I had to keep her away from my family, but she came back around when I had my second kid. You got your mom to stay away. She's the matriarch of a demon summoning cult. I feel like she don't have a lot of boundaries anyway. Like she don't give a about rules. Like I don't think. Surely, as the leader of this cult, she could find people to steal the baby. If you can do all this shit to get people to convince Annie to summon her dead daughter, surely you could have got people to convince her to start talking to her mom again. Or when you got back into the family, you could have just put demon in Peter. But for some reason, you chose to put the demon in the baby. Why the baby? When you say that your ideal vessel is a dude. It doesn't make any fucking sense. I got this to present more benefit of the doubt for the film because I was like, oh, maybe there's just things I'm not getting. But this actually is worse. The actual film is just a lot more streamlined and cohesive. There's a lot more of like ill-placed comedy in here that just doesn't fit with the overall tone of the film, so I don't mind that they kind of took it out. But again, equally as plot holy. And I'm sure after I've done all this nitpicking, you're probably like, Kendall, does it have to make perfect sense to be enjoyable? And certainly no. Like I said, I still enjoy watching the movie, if for nothing more than the I am your mother scene. I really like that scene. When you have a film that banks almost entirely on this retrospective knowledge of all the ways that the cult had something to do with the events of the story. A film that focuses so much on like the predestination, the inevitability of the family's life and subsequently their death. That the family's outcome is not due to anything in their control per se, but due to these unseen conspiracies of this unknown cult and or an unseen supernatural entity. The how is what cements it into being so terrifying. And once I asked too many questions on how did you even do that? To answer me with, well, the cult did it, or, well, it was a demon. I'm like, boo, you suck. I've watched too much genius anime in my life to let people cop out like that. You know what never did that to me? Death Note. And I understand we can't have a whole, 3-episode anime monologue about the evil plans of the cult because it probably wouldn't fit the tone. But without it, or without something that would be, tonally better, I'm just sat here thinking this don't make any sense, and therefore I'm not afraid. You ruined what makes me so afraid of the film, or what would have. And again, going back to the Where's Waldo thing, I felt like each time I watched it, I liked the movie less and less and less because it started off at an A. I don't want to call it S tier. It wasn't ever an S tier, but if it started off at A, Each time I watched it, oh, I noticed something that doesn't make sense, A-. Oh, I noticed 3 other things that don't make sense, B+. More things that, wait, what? B. And sure, when the demon comes in, starts screwing stuff up in the last like quarter or so of the movie, things do get scarier. It starts to take me out of this incredibly well-made and meticulously built emotional landscape that you've been building for the last hour and a half. And now you're like, oh, demons. But yeah, still a good movie. I just can't put you in AS tier anymore, dog. Whereas Midsommar gets it. Midsommar is all the things that Hereditary did right and none of the things that it did wrong. Fewer of the things. There are some things that don't make great sense, but they're not so distracting that they greatly take away from my enjoyment of the movie. An incredibly dense, multifaceted, cathartic, oddly funny, voyeuristic look into just the dilapidation of a relationship. And ultimately, we as an audience follow as someone is slowly seduced and taken advantage of in their most vulnerable state. And that's terrifying. So where Hereditary banks largely on this kind of unseen, omnipresent boogeyman and his helpers that plays this completely unknowing family like a fiddle, this movie subverts the concept of the frightening thing being in the darkness. It's being hidden, shadowed away, off screen, backstage, and instead says, hey, we a cult. It's bright and white and beautiful while being just the most insidious horror. Speaking of its insidiousness, I think one of the things that I find most terrifying about Midsommar is actually not the movie itself. It's some of the initial reactions I read about the movie. When I was looking at like decorated critics, so many people somehow left Midsommar knowing it's a horror film, knowing to some degree that it's about a cult, and somehow left the film saying, at least she's happy.
The final act is about the release Dani finds in not diminishing herself. Gone is the woman who has decided to conceal her emotions for the sake of sparing others.
Digging deeper, this is a story about the importance of empathy, shared emotion, and finding family in the most unexpected places.
Dani may have lost her biological family, but she's gained the understanding that a family can be chosen.
While Harga may not be an ethical place, it is the right place for Dani to finally find peace.
The end of Midsommar shows that this has been a fairy tale all
that
along.
Immensely satisfying
All I have to say to Christian is, burn, baby, burn!
Yes.
Also, I would like to feel held by Pele.
Happy. I'd join the cult in Midsommar. They seem fun.
I think this might be a happy ending. What do you... And I'm curious what your response is.
Y'all make my ass itch. A lot of people apparently thought that Dani joining a cult after every single person that she came with died, whether they just wanted to leave or not, is now willingly staying in the cult. But at the end of the day, she's in a cult. And somehow people left this film and thought, I mean, it's not my vision of a family, but I get it.
It's designed to be cathartic, and it's designed to play as a happy ending. And I think we were going for this like feeling of awe as opposed to a feeling of like horror.
But back to my original point. Midsommar has all the things that makes Hereditary great and none of the things that make Hereditary distracting, i.e. the plot holes. And also it adds one key element, the power and weaponization of empathy. There are no ghouls, there are no goblins, there's no supernatural or unearthly forces to undermine the fate of the characters. Instead, all there is people. And that is the most terrifying force of all. All we as an audience see is the very real and understandable emotions of grief, sadness, hopelessness, isolation, loneliness, and the desire to have all of those horrible feelings taken away and to be welcomed and belonging somewhere. That's literally how people get in cults. Like, no well-adjusted, happy person joins a cult. They're obviously looking for something. Group or leader takes advantage of that. Jesus Christ. We as an audience empathize empathize with Danny. And I know this might be a hot take. There's even elements of Christian that I empathize with and I understand. Like, he is a dick. He's awful. But there are certain humanizing factors around him that once you accept and realize those things, it's very hard to think of her burning him in a bear suit as a good thing. And once you accept that there are aspects of him that are very human and understandable, it makes the events that lead to him burning in a bear suit quite insidious and cynical in and of themselves. But that may be something I touch more on in the second video. I think what's really great about Midsommar is that it kind of plays off of people's assumption on what evil looks like. That again, it's this darkness, it's ugly and grotesque. Midsommar is incredibly good at using the things that we relate to as harmless and beautiful, and we usually associate those two things with each other. And I think the whole point of this film is to criticize our assumptions on what danger and horror looks like, right? It's a beautiful horror film. So much so that it may be hard to even comprehend what's really happening. I'm thinking particularly of the mating scene. It's fucked up. But the film asks of the audience to consider the actual nature of things and not the aesthetics of them, or the emotional connectivity of them, the empathy that we feel towards them. And as a final note on this part, I kind of alluded to this before, but this is entirely my own taste. But I personally find horror centered around the danger of normal human beings so much more terrifying. I guess my whole thought process is like, who needs ghouls and goblins when people are just like right there, just being shit. And I think what, again, is so skillfully done on Aster's part is that he was able to create such a dilemma around whether or not Danny ending up with them was a bad thing, because he was able to use the things that we appeal to as human beings. But yeah, that's the video. In conclusion, Midsommar is better because it has all the things that Hereditary has and none of the things that make Hereditary worse. And this really cool dynamic of the danger of what lies in the light as opposed to what lies in the dark. And you just watched a long ass video for me to just say that, so congratulations you. I hate my hair so much. Wait, maybe a half up. So that's all for today, folks. If you liked today's video, feel free to like today's video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD, and I will see you guys next time.